Hey everyone, Nicholas from the Unusual Whales team here, and in this video we're going to build another interval flow filter to help you understand what each of the criteria utilized control and how you can build your very own filter to track trades grouped within these set time intervals. Now, interval flow is another iteration of the flow feed, only transactions are grouped into set time intervals. Contracts that show up in this feed must meet all of our criteria over here in our filters and must do so all within that set time interval. Interval flow defaults to 5-minute intervals, and that's the time frame that we're going to use for this specific filter. Now, for the filter that we're building in this video, we're going to focus on ask side transactions that hit the tape within a 5-minute interval. And we're going to be looking for flow that indicates opening trades. Now, like I said, this filter is going to focus on a 5-minute interval. So anything that falls outside of these 5 minutes, be it 10 minutes or 15 minutes, they will not show up in this filter. Now, to start us off, for the equity type, I'm going to eliminate ETFs and indices. The reason for this is I'm looking for individual names, and ETFs and indices can get really noisy. So I want to cut out some of that noise by limiting what we're looking for specifically to individual tickers. For the option type, I'm going to keep both calls and puts on. We want to see both types of contract because this filter isn't for an overall directional bias. We're looking for individual names and contracts here. For your own custom filters that you might build down the road, you can adjust any of these criteria to your liking. But for this one, we're not concerned about directional bias. We want all of it. We also want to see companies that lie in all sectors, and we want to see all contracts across all expiration dates. So I'm going to leave both of these criteria completely blank. Now, if it's something that you want to do for your filters, you can limit this down to just basic materials, energy, financial services, really any sector that you're interested in having a filter for. But again, for this one, we'll leave that blank. All right, now we're going to get right into the thick of it by going through the individual criteria under interval activity for this 5-minute time span. All contracts, in order to hit this feed, must meet all criteria that we're about to set here. The top criteria option here, percent total volume, restricts the feed to only fire when the transactions within that 5-minute interval total a certain percentage of the contract's total daily volume. I'm leaving this blank for this filter. But if, for instance, you want a 5-minute interval to account for 50% of the total daily volume, you can achieve that by adding 0.5 here at the minimum on the left-hand side to indicate 50% of that contract's total volume falling within our 5-minute interval. Volume will also leave blank because I'm not terribly concerned with size here. We'll address that slightly in a filter criteria later on. The volume OI field tracks the ratio between the day's total volume and the total open interest already outstanding. Now, since we're looking for newly open trades, I do want to have the volume transacted today be higher than the open interest. So I'm going to put here 1.05. This will ensure that the total volume transacted today is at least 105% of the total open interest. This isn't going to guarantee new positioning because technically that 100% could be closure of the open interest, but it does give us a little bit more insight to the day's total traded volume. And we can kind of use context clues from there to deduce the likelihood of any positional closure. But at least we'll know we have more volume than open interest. The average fill is exactly what it sounds like. It's the average price at which the contracts within that 5-minute interval transacted. This one I'm going to leave blank as well. Ask percent dictates what percentage of the interval transactions filled at or near ask price. Since this filter is targeting ask side to open transactions, I want a good portion of those transactions to fill around that ask price. I'm going to set this to 0.7, which will represent a minimum of 70% of all transactions within that interval filling at or near the ask. Now in this filter, we want to have clean ask side, likely opening flow, but that doesn't mean I want to completely eliminate all multi-leg transactions. But I do want to limit what percentage of transactions filled as a multi-leg. And to do that, I'll enter 0.3 into the maximum side on the right of percent multi. What this is going to do is it's going to limit the number of contracts transacted within that time interval that were transacted as a multi-leg trade to 30% or less. Since I'm not too concerned about what type of trade has transpired, I'm going to leave percent sweep and percent floor blank. You can learn more about what those two terms mean and what that type of trade is by going to the Unusual Whales FAQ. For premium, I do want to have a minimum here. I don't want to catch every little whisper of transaction that comes through. I want there to be some kind of premium there. I won't have a maximum value because I don't want to limit how much premium there is, but I do want to have a minimum. So here within a 5-minute interval, I'm going to add $100,000 in net premium. Percent OTM stands for percentage out of the money, which is this column right here, which tells you how far out of the money from the ticker spot price the strike of the contract sits. I don't mind seeing really out of the money contracts, so I'm just going to leave this one blank. Below that are the last set of criteria for this filter. While I'm not concerned about how far out of the money a contract is, I am going to toggle exclude in the money, because I don't want to see contracts that are already in the money, especially large transactions on deep in the money contracts that might be part of some kind of arbitrage strategy that's really hard to read. So for this specific filter, we'll just weed all of that out. The top two sliders, interval volume greater than open interest and total volume greater than open interest, I'm going to toggle on because, as I mentioned earlier, I want these to indicate opening trades, and the only way for that to be likely or at times guaranteed is if the volume is greater than open interest. I'd prefer to see this happen within our 5-minute interval. And so for this filter, I'm going to toggle both of those. For the chain activity filters, DTE is blank because I'm not looking for transactions focusing on a set time frame. I want all expirations in this filter. Open interest is blank as well. I'm not concerned with how much total open interest there is on a given contract. I'm only interested in the relationship between volume and open interest for this filter. I just want to know that volume is greater than open interest within our 5-minute interval. And that's just about all there is to this specific filter here. We've got our 5-minute interval. We have no restrictions on the percentage of total volume. Our interval premium is greater than 100,000. And our total volume is greater than our open interest. And from here, we can kind of navigate and search through this flow like we always do on our normal flow feed. And one thing I wanted to point out just to be on the look for are examples like this contract for Dash, the $170 put expiring on December 13th. Here we can see in the interval, we do have greater than 70% ask side transactions. However, if we look over to the total days worth of bid ask transactions, it also shows us that 72% of all transactions on that contract across the entire day happened at the bid rather than at the ask. So due to that, this Dash contract might not be what we're looking for. On the other hand, the $16 contract for ticker PR expiring May 16th of 2025 has a total 5-minute interval ask side transaction of 97% of all contracts, and the total days volume bid ask transactions match. Now we've got a contract we can maybe take a look at here. And just like the flow feed, you can click on the contract expiration date to pop out the contract summary for the contract and see how these transactions occurred. Here we see one sizable transaction at 1:20 p.m. Central Time, and then two more sizable taps, the first of 840 contracts and the next 1,336 contracts, all at the ask side of the bid-ask spectrum. You can click on that bar just like in the flow feed and see where those all transacted. We can see, yep, ask side, ask side, ask side, all filling at $1 per contract and a bid-ask spread of 90 to $1 and 90 to 105. It looks like this also triggered one of our alerts, the repeated hits, time, and sales. And if that's a contract that interests you in your strategies, you can save it just like you always do from your flow feed. I have a link to this exact filter down in the description should you want to utilize this same one, but I hope it really gives you a good idea on what these filter criteria mean and do and how you can build your own filter. You can click through now to the next video that shows you how you can set up custom alerts for your interval flow filters to get push notifications to your phone every time a contract meeting your criteria hits this feed.